Also developing right now, Florida's Surgeon General says for us to stop getting the COVID vaccine.
Fox 35's Hannah McKenzie is joining us live in the Alert Center tonight. So, Hannah, he says what's in the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines is a problem.
Yeah, Luann, Florida Surgeon General Dr. Ladapo says he has safety concerns pertaining to the discovery of billions of DNA fragments found per dose in the Pfizer and Moderna COVID vaccines. And he says those concerns have not been addressed by the FDA or the CDC. Dr. Ladapo says if the risks of DNA integration with COVID vaccines cannot be addressed, then the vaccines aren't appropriate for use in humans.
But that only applies to humans, so it's not all bad, because the mouses, they're presumably fine. Excuse me!
He says he sent letters to the heads of the FDA and the CDC specifically questioning how this would impact humans in three main areas. Healthy human genes being transformed into cancerous cells.
Oh, so it could cause cancer then, I suppose. And would it cause those cancers slowly or quickly? Well, quite quickly. Turbo speed. Yeah, turbo cancers, yeah, you could call them that.
Chromosomal instability, and how the integration could affect unintended parts of the body, such as the heart, brain, lungs, even the injection site itself.
But before we get too cynical, have we heard of any heart issues in people that have been vaccinated? Oh. Although it was initially dismissed as a conspiracy theory, we now know that many vaccine-like products do affect the heart. But cancers? Albert Bourla certainly seems to believe a lot of people are going to be getting cancer soon. But is there any evidence? Because I like to follow the science all the way to the tumour.
Among younger people, it says more people are getting colorectal cancer and more people are dying from it. While the cause of the uptick is not clear, doctors say they do have theories about what may be driving the rise. Our George Stephanopoulos has more.
Doctors are sounding the alarm about cancer diagnoses on the rise in people younger than 50.
And maybe the scariest thing about that is that we actually don't know what is driving this uptick.
Colorectal cancer is just one of the several common cancers on the rise in young adults under 50 in the past 20 years.
A new report from the American Cancer Society anticipates 153,000 new colorectal cancer cases this year and about 52,000 deaths. 60% of new cases are advanced stage disease, and rates are increasing among younger people.
Shockingly, 1 in 5 people who will be diagnosed presently are younger than 55 years of age, which is quite young for colorectal cancer.
Doctors aren't sure what's driving that trend, but say more than half of colorectal cancers are attributed to factors under your control, like diet, exercise, and smoking.
It's your fault that you got cancer, and if Albert Bourla makes some money out of that, that's none of your business. Although you did fund the research and development for many of the products that have made Pfizer so rich in the first place. It's your fault. So I
was recently at a conference in Romania on the COVID crisis, and so there was a lot of work trying to unpack what we actually understand. And
I love Brett Weinstein. He always looks a little bit down, doesn't he? Like, I feel like Brett Weinstein, even if he was giving you a birthday gift, he would still be a bit down. Heather and I have bought you this book token. You probably don't want it. Listen, I'll throw it in the bin. No, I like it. No, it's not good enough. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it.
I saw a credible estimate of something like 17 million deaths globally from this technology. So
17 million deaths from the COVID vax?
Those figures line up with what Steve Kirsch said when he was on our show pertaining to the New Zealand data breach, which obviously the legacy media are not reporting on. And as a side note, Tucker's done his hair slightly differently.
Well, when you scale up to billions, it's not hard to reach a number like that with a technology this dangerous. People's willingness to accept the erosion of their rights because of a public health emergency has allowed this tyranny to use it as a Trojan horse. It's something people need to become aware of. There are a number of features of our environment. Basically, they are blind spots that we can't see past. Vaccine was one, and I know I was an enthusiast about vaccines. I still believe deeply in the elegance of vaccines as they should exist. But I'm now very alarmed at how they are produced, and I'm even more alarmed at what has been called a vaccine that doesn't meet the definition. Because many of us believe that vaccines were an extremely elegant, low harm, high efficacy method of preventing disease, when they called this mRNA technology a vaccine, many of us gave it more credibility than we should have.
When you see legacy media reporting on figures like Bret Weinstein and indeed the perspectives of people like Bret, it's always astonishing to actually see them and how diffident and considered and scientific and gentle they are, because of course in legacy media they're talked about as like hysterical, hyperbolic. What this type of media has revealed to us is there are a variety of perspectives that have to be condemned as hysterical because otherwise they seem completely reasonable. What he's saying there is that he has all manner of respect for vaccine technology, but what happened in the last couple of years was an intervention that used the word vaccine as a kind of veil to mask what they actually were. And all of you guys, let me know in the chat and the comments, commonly use phrases like experimental technology and stuff like that, and clearly that's a pretty valid perspective.
If they had called it a gene transfection technology, we would have thought, wait, what? You know, that sounds highly novel and it sounds dangerous, and how much do we know about the long-term implications?
Also, we know that there was so much marketing pumped into vaccines. You saw all of the musical numbers, the government campaigns. They didn't just plainly and pragmatically say, listen, this is a new technology that we have, give it a whirl. You know, it was extraordinary, bombastic, distracting. In fact, all of the evangelism, hysteria and zeal exists on the apparently rational side of the argument, where the counter-narratives, those that are inquiring, those that might refer to ourselves as the resistance, are a variety of characters, but many of them involve highly rational, quite calm individuals like Bret there.
But because they called it a vaccine, people were much more willing to accept it.
But before we get into Albert Bourla's new moonshot, turbo cancers, here at last. Let's first examine whether or not pharmaceutical companies are opportunistic and would see crises as a great chance to make money, explore new techniques, or even create market conditions that would otherwise be inconceivable.
Ultimately, the mRNA vaccines are an example for that cell and gene therapy. I always like to say, if we had surveyed 2 years ago in the public, would you be willing to take gene or cell therapy and inject it into your body, we would have probably had a 95% refusal rate.
What if we were to terrify you for a couple of years? Would you consider it then, oh, I suppose I'm terrified. And what if we shamed you? Oh, yes, shame, I wouldn't like that. And we lock you in your home, of course. All right, I'll take your damn product.
I think this pandemic has also opened many people's eyes to...
Yes, it's suddenly opened a lot of people's eyes. That's part of the problem, isn't it? They went too far. They overplayed their hand. Many people's eyes are opening.
To innovation in the way that was maybe not possible before.
Okay, so we've seen now Weinstein's claim that the vaccine wasn't even really a vaccine. We've seen people from within the industry saying it was extraordinary and admitting that they were opportunistic in their approach to this. Now, let's get into Pfizer's new moonshot, turbo cancers. Many of you will know that it's an accepted, even sort of quasi-mainstream media critique that Pfizer aren't an innovative pharmacological company where scientists are in laboratories doing all sorts of experiments. This is me being a scientist. Come on, get 8 mouses, splash that one. Oh my God, my eyes. No, Pfizer operate more like a venture capitalist organization, in this case buying up a smaller company that's been working on medications for turbo cancers. They've recently paid over the odds $43 billion for a company that has a $2 billion a year turnover, which seems to suggest that Albert Bourla and Pfizer think that turbo cancers are going to be a big thing in the future. Why would they think that? What's the evidence? What is that prognosis, dark as it may be for the rest of us, based on? Well, cancer is seemingly on the rise, and we'll be telling you a little bit more about that in young people. We've already seen excess sudden deaths. We've seen myocarditis, pericarditis, unexplained heart attacks, collapsing. Now it seems that there's a rise of cancer. What's happened lately? What could be causing this mysterious flare-up in all sorts of diseases? Let me know in the comments and chat. Here, though, is Albert Bourla talking about his new moonshot. And I like the way they keep continually selling this as if he's some sort of brilliant, genius entrepreneur rather than a person who appears to be exploiting misery for money.
Lastly, what is Pfizer's next moonshot and how do you expect to get there?
She's not even that into it, is she? What is Pfizer's next moonshot? Come on, get into it. This is a moonshot.
Where we put all our efforts, because again, based on the discussion we have for strategy, we think we have the capabilities to make a difference, and there is a huge need.
Gotta help people. Gotta help them.
From the world to see a difference is cancer.
With all this corruption in the world, it's nice to know